Yeah, we do hear about it, and it is a pretty common symptom of severe conduct disorder. So if kids have conduct problems that are kind of getting in the more severe area, there will be this abuse towards animals. And it's even a symptom in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, so that people can get diagnosed based on kind of cruelty towards animals.
Tell me more about that, because that's really interesting that
Yeah.
that it's that common that you find it there.
Yeah. So there's in the DSM there's like three disorders that are kind of considered disruptive behavior disorders, and one's oppositional defiant disorder, another one is conduct disorder, and ADHD falls into that category, but you don't really see this kind of cruelty to animals until you run into this conduct disorder. And just recently they added this limited prosocial emotion category to it, which is kind of when kids are getting a little more callous or mean. And if they have these kind of characteristics, the conduct problems plus this callousness, they can start to do things like that, the cruelty to animals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the average kid, it's very uncommon. So if you're talking about the average kid, there's not going to be this kind of cruelty towards animals, but maybe within like 3 to 5% of the population, you'll start to get kids that have conduct problems, and they get more severe. And the more severe ones, then that's when you're going to see this kind of problem happen. It's not like you can't see it with normal children. There'll be sometimes normal children that might try something like this, but when they do, you're hoping that they feel really bad about it, and that they desist and stop from doing it. So it's kind of like sometimes a child will throw a stone at a bird, and then they hit the bird, and they feel very bad about the fact that they had hit this bird, and maybe the bird is injured now. So they feel really bad, and that's what you're looking for. And also, that kind of experimentation can happen, but if it's kind of more planned out and it's more regular and it's increasing in the magnitude at which this abusiveness to animals is happening, then it becomes obviously a very big concern.
But it's the guilt. Am I understanding that right? It's kind of the guilt factor that makes the difference.
Yeah, it's the guilt factor that really helps us know if it's kind of in this pathological area or if it's just kind of experimenting. And as an adolescent, because we know that the brain is developing from the back forward, and so the decision making is not as good in children and adolescents, and they're also trying to experiment and to try to learn things about their environment. So they may do something like that, but it's usually not extreme, or it's something that happens by an accident. So that helps us differentiate it, what's going on. And sometimes the reason why it comes about helps us understand if it's like a pathology or a problem or not. So there are kind of some behavioral genetic studies that show some kids are born a little bit more dominant or a little bit more mean, and a lot of it can depend on the environment, whether it's expressed or not. So a lot of it, sometimes depends on parenting and the way that parents handle kids. If they are kind of genetically have a more difficult temperament, can affect how they then express themselves in the environment. And a lot of this also can be in place either genetically, or can happen like prenatally with mothers, depending on the number of risks that they have in their environment. So, and one thing that we've kind of learned is that if they have a lot of risks, they might be bolder or more fearless. And unfortunately, what that means then is that the parents, when they're trying to train them or try to take care of them or to kind of get them going in the right direction, is that they might be more harsh with them. And so then the child becomes more problematic or has more kind of conduct problems with them, and this kind of cycle continues. So when you're talking about later on, if the parenting is kind of continuing to interact with the child who's trying to, create an environment that they want, then this kind of what we call a bidirectional kind of relationship between the child and the parent continues to get worse. And then when they start interacting with their peers, what they've kind of learned is that in some ways being mean and being manipulative can pay off, and so they then continue that pattern all the way into adulthood, where they might have like an antisocial personality disorder in adulthood. So if you have kind of this kind of cruelty to animals early, then it's something that kind of needs to be really nipped in the bud early and treated, so that they can get on this kind of pro-social track again.